Welcome to the Nashville Post podcast. My name is Nicole Prano. I'm editor-in-chief of the Post, and on this show, we go inside the minds of company leaders who are reshaping our city's industries. This podcast is part of our Innovations and Ideas digital series brought to you by Cumberland Pharmaceuticals. For more stories and content like this, go to nashvillepost.com. Let's meet one of our disruptors.
Hi, I'm Sashank Purighalla. I'm the founder and CEO of Boss Framework.
Thank you so much for being here today. We are here to talk about all things innovation, and for you, that is within the technology realm. So I would love to hear how you're innovating today.
Like you said, Nicole, I am an engineer turned entrepreneur, and I use the word engineer with intentionality. In the world of software, I've often said that software engineering is an oxymoron because there is no engineering in software. And what we are innovating is how we bring engineering into the world of software. This is more so true with the advent of AI, because AI can produce results, outputs so fast. It can generate so much code that if it is not done with prior thought, with the right planning, and with the engineering discipline of producing outcomes, you can produce a lot of chaos. So all of our innovation internally within our company, and for the companies that we serve, our customers and the community, is around how do you bring that discipline and those systems so that you can produce software results and outcomes with predictability and certainty and determinism using AI.
I think that the value around that is massive, because when you're talking about technology and innovation, people think of the great big grand idea, but they don't think about the small steps that it takes to get there. And what you guys are doing are making those small steps applicable to the greater goal. So tell me a little bit about why that's so important to have at the center of your company.
Talking about engineering, a piece of engineering all of us recognize and relate to is probably a bridge. Visualize this technology that allows you to pour concrete 100 times faster and empowers every construction worker to, let's say, swing their hammers 10x faster. What becomes more important is not the speed, it becomes conformity to the blueprint. That is exceptionally important in this branch of a discipline too. Because in software, nobody is thinking about the blueprint. And what AI has done is, because of the speed with which you're able to deliver code, and everybody's talking about how fast code can be delivered, I'm sure 100% of the senior engineers sitting there, software engineers sitting there, are thinking, but what about the blueprint? So what this era has suddenly elevated is the importance of blueprints in the world of software. So thinking about that and ensuring that that is followed through and through becomes the primary focus and the primary concern everybody should be thinking about, and they're not. And that becomes problematic.
So when a business owner is thinking about their software and, maybe they're not technologists, where do they need to start?
So good-looking software almost always beats well-architected software in the beginning until. So what they should be thinking about is, when they're building something, they're probably building a good-looking demo that everybody can go, yeah, that's a good concept. But then immediately turn around and truly engineer it. Because if you're serious about putting that out in production and letting others pay you, and you're trying to commercialize it, and other concerns such as resilience and reliability and security, compliance become important. So you can vibe code, Nicole, but you cannot vibe operate a production system. And that is something that I think the non-technical people leveraging AI to produce systems need to understand and probably bear in mind.
So talk a little bit about what is your innovation within your company right now, because you guys are doing something a little new.
I'll trace back about 3 years from now when AI became real. And like every other company, we were concerned. I was personally worried that we were going to become irrelevant, because AI was claiming to be this tool that, just replaces every software engineer. And I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah.
So I went and told my engineers, hey, what is this thing? Just start to work on it. And everybody started picking up a tool. And before I knew it, there were there was a religious war of three religions. There was the cursor people, there were the Claude people, and there were the windsurf people. And everybody thought that's the greatest thing since slice of bread. And everybody was producing results. For a period, we thought the results were amazing. The demos were great. It produced UI that we just looked at and said, wow, this is amazing. And we started figuring out what to do with it. But then before too long, we realized that the code and the demos that were being produced could not really be put in production in that manner. And we struggled for a little bit. And about 6 to 7 months after that point, we had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what succeeding with this new capability is going to look like. So we decided that there must be a different mechanism, a different methodology that we adopt to succeed with this new technology, which is AI. AI was amplifying everything that we were doing, but it also was creating this, it was forcing the need for us to go back and think through what it is that we want to produce on the other side, because everything was being produced so quickly. So the answer was all along present in front of us, which was Software Engineering 101, which says you start with a very clear definition of what it is that you want to produce, the vision, and then write the business requirement and say why it is that you want to produce it, the functional specifications, the technical specifications, the architecture, and then produce code. And what everybody else was doing was producing code, and we were falling into the exact same problem, and we were creating the same exact situation for us, which was we are jumping right to code without thinking about all these essential steps. But then it cannot be artisanal. It cannot be dependent on a single hero to come through every single time. And that's some of the problems that probably every company out there is facing. We were facing the same problem. So we said, okay, we need to leverage this capability. We need to follow process. We do not want to be dependent on individuals coming through. So what does that system look like? That became Forge. So it's a governed mechanism. It's a platform. It's a governed mechanism. You just log into a web application, and once you get in there, you say what it is that you want to produce, and it creates the workflow for you. You say, here are my team members, and here are the various roles they play, then it automatically puts them in those roles. And then it ensures that everybody is asked the right questions, and then they ask the right questions, and they provide the right inputs, and it furnishes every single output, and every output is the input to the next person in line. So this is the software factory, right? That is an assembly line that takes you from one node to the other until the final outcome is produced.
I think that what you guys have created with Forge, to give it the baby steps that it needs to get to the end result, to create the outcomes like you're talking about, is really unique. So I'm interested to see what businesses take it on and see where they go with it. And I know you probably can't talk about your clients, so I won't ask.
I'll tell you this. Almost every one of our clients falls in one of two buckets. They're being forced by their boards, and they're being asked, CEOs and CTOs are being asked this question, what are you doing in the world of AI? And some of the honest CTOs, Nicole, actually tell me we're just dabbling with AI. I have a few of my developers tinkering with Claude Code or what have you. And that's the point when we go and say, we understand that you want to go forward with AI, and that it takes a lot of effort and a lot of thinking and probably cultural change in certain ways to move from where you're at to that level of maturity that can produce outcomes. You can produce outputs very quickly, right? Code, here's a document, very, very fast. Listen, 10 minutes later, I have a fantastic document. But an outcome, on the other hand, is the convergence of so many different steps. And it has to be thought through. So we go to them and give them that immediate elevation of maturity in the world of AI, software development in AI, to put them at that. So that's one. And the other kind of customers are people that come and say, hey, you know what? I need this output. I know AI can do something. Can you help us out? And so, all right, do you have existing systems? Yes, let me refactor that or rebuild, as the case may apply. And then we bring it all together. So who do we serve? We serve we work best with scaling companies, mid-market companies that are trying to bring AI into their mix. And we're trying to help them convert what has become an art project into engineering in the world of AI and software. So our platform, we introduce that, and then they have AI governance, software delivery with AI, and intelligently automated cloud infrastructure all together with BOSS. And so they get from a certain level of just trying to figure out to a high level of engineering, software engineering maturity and delivery, and more importantly, maintainability long term, very, very quickly.
When other companies are utilizing what you've created and they're innovating, what do they need to be doing? How did you guys, innovate within your company? What kind of model should they copy looking at that?
We tried, like everybody else, thinking about tools and which tool to use and what models to bring into our mix. And we found that it's not as much about the model at all, because model does not give you any competitive advantage. You have the same models like everybody else in the world has, and they're always getting better. What's ultimately going to help you as a company, as a team, is the operating system that you install. And the operating system is the way you execute against the AI strategy that you have in place. And in that, your tools and models play a part. They're important. But the full picture comes together when you have the entire operating system, the methodology. And that's what we introduce for our customers and their teams.
When companies and owners are starting to kind of allow their teams to innovate and that sort of thing, a lot of times smaller companies, not large scale, they're talking to venture capitalists and investors and that sort of thing when they're trying to people they're trying to please, unless they're sole owners, in which case they have great flexibility. Talk about your experience with that some.
I have a lot of stories to tell about that. Venture capital and the relationship with your investors relative to what you're doing as an organization is probably the single biggest and most impactful decision you can make as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a company. Uh, I'll just share my experience with you candidly. When I started thinking about the idea of BOSS, the whole concept was engineering discipline is missing in software. And when engineering discipline is induced into software delivery process and management process, companies can be successful. Almost every company is tech enabled, and this engineering discipline could help them with whatever innovation it is that they're doing. When I shared the idea with a few venture firms, I had a lot of interest, and very quickly we found somebody that was genuinely interested. On paper, it looked like a match made in heaven. What they were doing and what they were interested in, their priorities, and what we thought our priorities were matched perfectly, and we got some investment. But when we started working, we found very quickly that we are not a venture aligned firm, in the sense that they have a certain playbook. And we were never meant to be a quick success story. We were built to sustain. We were building to sustain over the long haul. We were trying to disrupt an entire industry, an entire culture that's working a certain way. We are, in fact, more convinced today than we ever were. But that became a point of contention. So the very ground on which we agreed on that relationship became the point of contention because of the way we needed to run versus them wanting to run. And I think this is probably true with many companies, and it doesn't surface as much. The lack of alignment and that mismatch can make fantastic possibilities just water down because there is dissonance at the highest level. We identified, and don't get me wrong, my investor, one of the best people I know, and I'm a big fan of his and them. But because of that mismatch and that lack of alignment in how the company has to be run, and the governance structure, we had to have a very honest conversation with them. And last year, we bought them out to make ourselves a pure play for the way we need to innovate. This may not be true with everybody, but that's a mistake that caused us to lose many years of effort and a lot of energy in the process.
The Nashville Post podcast series is proudly sponsored by Cumberland Pharmaceuticals, Nashville's specialty biopharmaceutical company. With a focus on innovation, Cumberland is working to develop new medicines for the future. The company also sponsors and operates Nashville's Life Sciences Center, which houses Cumberland's laboratories and supports the community as a home for emerging medical ventures. Cumberland is committed to improving patient care and to strengthening the life sciences sector of Tennessee's healthcare ecosystem. Learn more at cumberlandpharma.com. You mentioned, being an industry disruptor and how you're also not something that's just going to be that flash in the pan of a company that just pops up overnight and you see this great big, change. So you're an industry disruptor for the long haul. What does that mean to you? How do you wake up every day and say, I'm changing this industry still the same way I was 10 years ago,
So I'm a mechanical engineer by training. And I got into software at the time when everybody was getting into software. And I get into software, and I'm like, where is engineering in this? It's like build and fix, everybody doing it artisanally their own way. There's no standardized way of achieving it. And then that became the reason why I started Boss. And we've been making progress. We have been, the industries where we work, the companies where we work, we have been able to fundamentally change their reality. Many of them are working 100% on Boss. And that gives us a lot of joy to know that what would have otherwise been probably a lost cause, because they are tech-enabled, and probably IT monopolizes the budgets of probably every one of these tech-enabled companies. Visualize lowering the cost of running that company by 30% on their IT side. That could be monumental because that directly goes into their EBITDA. That gives us a lot of energy. It's extremely hard by the same token because a lot of people that tell us this is not worth it and this is not going to be possible. Even today, I see people, I don't get the point. We can do all of this. Yeah, you can do all of that, but at what cost? And how effectively can you do it? So when you start to compare outcomes and outcomes, that's the apples to apples comparison. There's a big difference. When you look at methodologies, of course, you can do the same thing in your own artisanal ways. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that gives us a lot of joy. And AI suddenly rekindled this entire need because AI suddenly exponentially increased the lack of discipline in the industry because everybody can now code, which was the North Star of some of the older thought processes around what was called 4GL, fourth generation language, and fifth generation language. The idea was to get closer to human language in speaking to computers, and AI actually made it happen. But that did not remove the need for discipline. The need for engineering has only gone up through this process. So I think what we're doing is more relevant than ever, and we're creating more impact than ever.
When you started doing what you've done with Forge specifically, how has that changed your business model?
As a company, we're still known for cloud modernization, intelligent automation of AWS and Azure infrastructures. When we would go to companies and they would benefit from that particular intelligent automation in how clouds were doing, and their total cost of ownership would suddenly drop 30%, 70%. Many times they would come and ask us to also help them with their software development modernization. While that was on our radar, we did not have the means and the ability to focus on that until AI breakthrough happened within our own company, like I was explaining earlier. So Forge became the same thing to software development and code generation, up until code generation rather, that we already were on the cloud automation part. So it helped us expand our overall proposition for the customers and the companies we go and try to help from this more holistic perspective of overall software delivery rather than just cloud infrastructure, automation, and maintenance.
How, as a, smaller company who might be coming to you, looking for help in this regard, how do you approach them versus a large corporation?
Our sweet spot is scaling companies and mid-market companies because they have the problems of an enterprise, but they do not have the resources of an enterprise. They do not have the ability to commit the mistakes that an enterprise can, both in terms of capital as well as the time that's afforded to them. So that's where we create the biggest impact. But ultimately, we are going after software teams that are trying to deliver goods. So whether it's a department that's handling all aspects of SDLC in a larger enterprise, or a mid-market company where there is the software team and the technology team that's doing all aspects of software delivery, those characteristics are very identical. Our sales cycles are longer with enterprises, so we don't like it for that reason. But mid-market companies, we sell faster because the decision-making is so much faster and the impact is so much more profound.
How are you using AI in personal ways?
I'll tell you a conversation I was having with my dad, who is 80 years old, yesterday. And he has an assistant. And my dad, for the longest time, did not know how to use email. And we had to teach him how to use email. Of course, he's been using email and phone and everything for a very long time. But I had no idea he was using AI. And he calls me yesterday and he says, I'm so frustrated with my assistant. I ask him for something and he does not deliver. Whereas I go to Gemini and I get that answer just like that. And I'm able to contact the people through my browser and just get the answers that I want. And that amazed me. And it just suddenly resurfaced the impact AI is having in every one of our lives. Here's an 80-year-old man in India, very distant from technology, that is able to get answers to things that he was otherwise waiting on somebody for weeks. That is transformative.
Yeah, I think that the transformation that AI has brought into every industry is something really, we're going to look back on one day and say, people compare it to the transformation of when the internet came out, right? But it's even more than that. I think we can't even fathom now, like, what we're going to be thinking about it,
It has suddenly expanded human capability and capacity infinitely. It was so hard to gather knowledge up until recently. Now you could be driving in your car and have a chat with your ChatGPT voice assistant and ask any question under the sun and have instant access to knowledge. So augmenting our own capability and knowledge, and as a result, reach, is just so phenomenal. And yeah, we're very much an optimist in terms of what AI can do to our reality in the future.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Nashville Post podcast. Be sure to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And please help spread the word by sharing, rating, and reviewing the show. The Innovations and Ideas digital series is brought to you by the Nashville Post with support from Cumberland Pharmaceuticals. For more content like this, go to nashvillepost.com and follow us on LinkedIn or wherever you get your news. This episode was produced in partnership with Relationary Marketing and the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Produced and engineered by Buckner, Chuck Bryant, AJ Meyers, Noah Kammer, and Amira McCall.